Good evening, fellow citizens. I come back to you again this evening to do a live video. As I always mention, this is very rare for me to do live videos. I don't like doing live videos, but anytime you see me doing a live video, it is something that is serious. I'm doing a live video today in collaboration and in solidarity with the youths, the 37 youths, Killer Ace and the others that have been arrested and that have been remanded over a protest that they have done in July. The reason why I'm doing this video in collaboration again, and obviously in solidarity with the youths and with my colleagues as well in the diaspora and in the Gambia as well, is to raise the alarm, is to sound the alarm as to what is happening in the Gambia. And this will not be a long video; it will be a very short video, but I want to make it very clear. Gambia, we are at a situation right now where we're not going to take it anymore. I say it again, we're not going to take it anymore. 37 youths have been detained from a mass protest. And these youths were protesting, and there is not a shred of evidence that all these youths were involved in that protest, that they were involved in any arson attack. And guess what, guys? What the police are doing is that they are collaborating with the courts again, with the judges again. This is a movie that we have seen during Jammeh's time. There was collaboration between judges, activist judges, mercenary judges, if you may, and there was collaboration with the police prosecutors. And they will bring in charges, frivolous charges, cooked up charges, trumped up charges against citizens in order just to detain them. Do you know what is happening right now? This government is trying to send a message for the December protest that is being planned. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to set up an example. And let me just go through this real quick. And this video won't be long, I promise. The judge has no jurisdiction to see this case or even to hear this case. Absolutely. No jurisdiction. They admitted that. The police knew the judge has no jurisdiction. They knew the charges that they were bringing against these people. And they brought it to a Carnival magistrate court. That judge has no jurisdiction over the case. And that judge, instead of bailing out these kids, or instead of not hearing this case, he sent out these kids, these young men, to prison. He remanded them to Mile 2. Already, Mile 2 is congested. Already, Mile 2 is congested. There is even no space. I ask you all a question. Where are the prison reforms? Where are the terrible conditions that we all saw after the change? Has those things been changed? Our young men and women are sleeping there today. They are going to be there for the next 30 days. Do you guys remember the GPU 7? You remember the GPU 7? What happened to them? When they were arrested, they were remanded, they were sent to jail. This is the same thing that they are doing. There is a collaboration between the activist judges and the police to really set an example on these kids. And the Gambia, as I mentioned again, we're not going to take this anymore. And we are starting early before even we get to this situation. I can tell you something. The head of the anti-crime unit, Gorgimbub, or whatever his name is, he's conflicted. His team is conflicted. They are not supposed to hear this case. They are not supposed to handle this case. This case was supposed to be taken out of their jurisdiction because they are conflicted. His home was burned. Yes, we condemn any other attacks, any destruction on properties. But we also condemn any jungle justice. We also condemn any collaborations where police officers, investigating officers are collaborating with judges, and judges are sending our young kids to jail. Have you seen those Mile 2 conditions? You've been there? People who have been charged, there's not a shred of evidence to show that these kids were at the protest, were at the arson attack. And they brought up the arson attack. This is what they did during Jammeh's time. They deliberately bring charges against you. They keep amending those charges against you so that you can be kept in jail. Trying to set an example. Gambia, come no mako wahe, duñ ko jelat. In Gambia, duñ ko jelat again. We will not take it again. And I guarantee you one thing, this government, You laugh about it. When Haruna Jatta was killed, the government, anytime President Barrow was asked a question, he laughed about it. Guess what? Haruna Jatta's case made it to the UN Human Rights Review. And I guarantee you, these youths, these 37 arrests, it's going to make it to the next Human Rights Report. It's going to make it to the next UN Human Rights Report. It's going to make it to the Amnesty International report. It's going to make it to all this Western, and it's directly going to affect funding. So what I'm trying to say is that this government is standing there and acting deliberately, acting as if they are not aware of what is going on, acting as yes, a due process has been followed. No, it is false. Due process has not been followed. And let me tell you something. The Supreme Court is in recession. It's in recess. The Supreme Court, the High Court, I meant to say, they're in recess. They are out for a month plus. If there was an emergency in the country right now, would the High Court come back and sit? So you mean to tell me that there is no judge who is put aside, who is on standby, who is supposed to stand up and hear an emergency case? So these young men are going to be detained for almost a month plus, waiting for the High Court to return. Are you serious? That's what a serious people do? That's what a serious nation does? This is serious, and Gambians, we must stand up. And the Bar Association, I have a challenge for you. And I was one of the most critical people of the Bar Association, during the Jammeh era, because I felt that the Bar Association was complicit. The lawyers were complicit. The judges were complicit. The police officers were complicit. The Gambian elders were complicit. The religious leaders were complicit. A lot of us Gambian citizens were complicit if what was going on in the Gambia. We looked the other way because we were not affected directly. Sooner rather than later, it was in our doorsteps, and every one of us was affected. So I'm doing this video again in solidarity with these youths, and I demand these youths to be released right away. There is not a shred of evidence presented in court to indicate that these youths were involved in arson attack. And the arson attack was only brought, those charges were only brought up because they want to keep these youths behind bars so that they are not bailed. It is bogus. It is jungle justice. And justice delayed is justice denied. And Gambians, we need to do this. All the civil societies need to get out and call a press conference. Opposition parties need to call it. This is not okay in the Gambia. Not in the new Gambia. And listen, the last time what happens, we all witness it. There were people who were part of the Jammeh regime. They were aiding and abetting the Jammeh regime. And when it turned against them, they ran away. They ran away. This time around, it's not going to happen. This time around, we're going to identify them from the get-go. We're going to name them and shame them. And it's not going to happen. We're going to campaign on our international, we're going to engage in international campaign, and we're going to make sure that these youths are freed. If these youths are not freed, we call on the youths to go and protest. The masses, power belongs to the people. Power belongs to the Gambian people. And Gambians, again, we are all engaged in never again. Never again. Never again should people be arrested and put in jail without due process. The youths are in behind bars right now. What is the never again for? Never again for you, for me, or for anybody else? It is happening right in front of us, all of us, and we all see it. And I therefore wanted to come in here and make a strong video to strongly condemn the detention and all those youths. It is wrong if it's done to them. It's wrong if it is done to any other Gambian. It is wrong. And for those of you who are ill-trained, so-called ill-trained, people that are, they're confused about our laws, people who are, confused about what constitution we have, what is reasonable and what's not reasonable, those people out there, spare us your knowledge. Spare us your legal activism. Okay? We know what is right and we know what is wrong. And we know it is wrong to send those youths that were accused. They were allegedly accused of being involved. And there is no threat evidence. There is not a video that's been produced that shows that Killer S and others were at the arson attack. You punishing youths for mass protest? Power belongs to the people. And we urge the youths out there to go out there and make sure that these youths are out. To make sure that they are out. We want you to hit the streets. Protest peacefully. But we want you to protest far right. We want you to protest far right and demand the release of our citizens. This is a message that this government is trying to send. It's not about President Barrow. It's not about Gorgimbub. It's about justice. It is about our country. It is about seeing things that were happening before and we ignored them until we were all caught up in it. That's what this situation is about. And that's why we're calling on these youths to be released. They must be released. These youths, their detention already is going to be part of the legacy of President Barrow. It's going to be part of your legacy. That you who stood for championship, you who stand for democracy, you who claim that you are the one who removed a dictator, you are acting exactly like the same dictator. You need to get involved and address the nation. And those of you who are sitting down there acting as there is nothing happening in the Gambia, there is nobody in behind bars, it is inhumane. It is jungle justice that is happening in the Gambia. And we're not going to take it anymore in the Gambia. We will not take it. We will not sit down and watch our youths, watch our women, watch our citizens' rights being tampered with without saying anything or without doing anything. That is why I decided to come in here today in solidarity with these youths. I said that this is a movie that we have seen before. We've seen people being detained on Fridays so they can spend the whole weekend behind bars. We've seen it in Gambia. We've seen trumpet charges brought up against citizens, false charges. We've seen people being paid to testify against innocent citizens. It is all happening before our eyes again. It is happening before our eyes again. And we urge all Gambians to stand up. If you are a decent Gambian, if you're a decent Gambian and you are unselfish, and you are bothered by injustice, then we urge you to do what you can to make sure that these youths are released. Spare us the constitution. Spare us the toilet paper. Spare us what laws that what is right and what is wrong. Spare us all those things that your activism judges. We will not sit down and watch this happen in the Gambia again. And I can guarantee you that this is a message that they are trying to send for the December protest. Protesting is one of the oldest democracies. It's the oldest way of citizens expressing their dissatisfaction. And you're doing a mass punishment. You're punishing, singling out Killer Ace and others because of their activism, because of their outspokenness. Police brutality is real. You saw how they were being pushed in the vehicle. You saw how they were abused. Imagine if the doors were shut in mile 2. Imagine what happens behind there. And now we have people that oversaw the killing on Solo Sandim and others. We have people who oversaw the dragging of prisoners from out of mile 2 and being executed in daylight. Those are the people who are now enforcing laws in the Gambia. And we think the system has changed. Or we think we should be in solidarity with the government. For what reason? For what reason? We want you to go back to your activism. We want you to go back to standing up. Go to, contact your law enforcement officers. Contact your legal representatives. Contact whatever you need to do. The Bar Association, again, we challenge you. We challenge you. If you remain mute in the face of injustice in the Gambia, you will be held responsible. The National Assembly, if you need to go occupy the National Assembly, go occupy the National Assembly peacefully. In the United States, the civil rights movements launch sittings, boss boycotts, other protests is what brought change into this country. That is what going to bring you as a citizen. Your number one arm, your number one vote is your vote. Your vote and your mouth. You protest, you speak against what is unjust in the Gambia. And that's what we are doing as Gambians. We are taxpayers in the Gambia. We may be away, but we are stakeholders in the Gambia. And we will not take this anymore. That's what I'm saying. Now, read my lips. In my George Bush voice, read my lips. We will not take this in Gambia anymore. Wherever you are as a youth, we urge you, because the next thing, if you don't do anything, you're going to be the next victim. If you are a parent, you don't do anything, you're going to be the next victim. If you are a police officer, you don't do anything, you're going to be the next victim. Civil servant, the same thing. It is therefore our responsibility as citizens, decent citizens. I'm not talking about people who are just after their paychecks. I'm after decent citizens, citizens with conscience. I urge you to speak up on this issue. And if there is need to protest, let's go out and protest. We will protest until the last minute to make sure that justice is done in the Gambia. Justice delayed is justice denied. This is why I decided to come in here. I don't want to make this too long. Okay? But I am here to pay, to pay solidarity with the youths. The 37 youths that are detained in the filthy Mile 2. Mile 2, that current presidential advisors, when my party was the president, when he was interior minister, he described Mile 2 as an unfit for human inhabitants. What change has happened in Mile 2? Our youths are sitting there right now. Youths that been arrested with cannabis. When the drug barons are roaming around freely. When the people who bribe the president's office are roaming around freely. When people who import guns into our country are roaming around freely in the Gambia. It is not going to be acceptable anymore in the Gambia. And it is decent citizens. And to those youths, do not despair. Do not despair. Truth crossed to earth would rise again. Truth crossed to earth would rise again. When Dr. King was speaking against human rights and against abuse of citizens and the rights of citizens in the United States, he was 26 years old. He was at your age. He was at your age. He stood up for justice. There is something bigger than all of us. And that's what you are doing. What you represent right now, you are a symbol of resistance in the Gambia. You are a symbol of fight against injustice. You are a symbol of fight against corruption, against nepotism, and against citizens who are unpatriotic and who are only interested in collecting a paycheck. You are a symbol of that resistance. The political movement in the Gambia, the Kalama Revolution, you were women who stood up, 100 degrees weather. They fought. Don't underestimate your might. The symbol that you are sending, the resistance that you are sending, right now you turned Mile 2 into a freedom house. You turned Mile 2 into a freedom house. You turned your jails into resistant houses. And I can tell you, they will try to break you. They will try to push you around. They will be humiliated. They will be ashamed. When they get out, they will come out and they will confess, just like we're seeing right now. And they will be humiliated. That's what I wanted to come in and give you an assurance that you'll be okay. And we as Gambians and decent citizens of the Gambia, we as patriotic citizens of the Gambia would not stand up and see our country being taken back to what we just came from. The wounds are fresh. The wounds are fresh in our minds. We know this was the kind of collaboration that was happening in the Gambia. They know they can define any need to come and testify against other people. They will bring up trumpet charges so they can get to you or they can try to break you. We've seen it all. As I said again, Gorgin Boom actually should step aside, should recuse himself from being the head of the anti-crime unit. He should. There's nobody who's going to support the idea of burning his home. No, we condemned burning his home. But we want the due process to take place. We want to make sure that people who were involved in there, those are the people that you target, and you don't target the youths because they are outspoken. You don't target killer A's and others. The future of our country is in the hands of our youths. And we see what you're doing. We will identify you. We will name you and we will shame you. And again, we will not accept that process of coming in and blaming everybody else but yourself. You take responsibility. We've seen all those of you in mask pushing these young men into trucks, humiliating them. We will identify you. And we will challenge you. We will challenge you. I just wanted to come in here tonight. It's kind of late in so many other places. I wanted to come in and pay solidarity. And pay solidarity with the youths. And with all activists out there. People who are standing up for justice. People who are standing up for what is right. No one is going to rescue our country for us. But if you think that you would pass the blame game over to somebody else and you would get away with it, when actually your family and you yourself are taken care of by taxpayers, where is your pride? Where is your patriotism? If you're a judge and you're sitting on that bench and you think you can send those youths who've been accused without a shred of evidence. In decent societies, a grand jury would be sitting down and reviewing evidence, reviewing video evidence. Identify these people before you send them to jail. So you want to arrest all these people so you can send the message. What is happening right now is a 3-year journey. That's the message that they are trying to send. But I can tell you, the harder the fight, the sweeter the victory. The harder the fight, the sweeter the victory. So I tell you, what you're trying to do, we see it, we learn from it, and we observe it, and we analyze it, and we know exactly what is happening. You're trying to send a message that anybody who protests in the Gambia, it's going to go through the same thing. Those jails don't break us. They don't break our citizens. They send our moms and dads in those jails. And I tell you, you cannot break the will of citizens who are willing to stand up and fight injustice. And we will fight injustice wherever it rears its ugly head. In the streets, in the courts, in the classrooms, everywhere, we will fight it. That's the message that I have for you. I just wanted to come in here real quick and just, to send a clear message that Gambia duñ ko jelat, nko nda tala koteke. Mim bangata on nonsense Gambia bangata anymore. Duñ ko jelat. And as we are all here, we all witness what is happening right now, and we are shouting around never again. It's right there happening. Nobody controls your tomorrow. Nobody controls your future. They can try. In fact, they feed off of you. They feed off of the taxes that you pay them. You take care of their families. If there is any shame, the shame is on them. It's not on you. You do your duty as a citizen. And we challenge you all as Gambians. Again, we challenge you all as Gambians to do the right thing. Those judges, you would not do your dirty laundering and you come back again and mingle among us here and you act like you are a saint or you were forced to do something. No, nobody is forcing you to do anything. Those police officers, nobody is forcing you to do anything. You are doing it because that's what you want to do. And we will hold you accountable for it. I thank you very much for watching. Again, I wanted to pay my solidarity with the youths, Killer Ace and others. They are not criminals. They are youths that are unemployed. Most of them are youths that are unemployed. You cannot provide them with jobs. You cannot provide them with colleges to go to. And the least you can do is to take them and remand them in mile 2. We want to know who is the judge who presided over this case. And we want to look into his background. And we want to identify those police officers who were involved. Gorgimboop should step aside, recuse himself, because he's conflicted. He's conflicted. And Gambia, we saw this movie. This is not going to happen again. And yes, you can sit down there and talk about all you want about the diaspora. What we see is what we're talking about. And what we see is injustice. What we see is nepotism. What we see is settling of scores. That's what we see in the Gambia. And nothing can take us down. Over our dead bodies. Over our dead bodies. You're the one who is afraid of losing a job because you cannot compete in a level playing field. You're the one who is fighting for a job because you cannot provide for yourself. And you want to use our youths as symbols. You want to use our lips as our youths as symbols. As I said again, watch my lips. We will not take this again in Gambia. Fool me once. Fool me twice. Not again in Gambia. All those of you who are all coming out and pointing fingers to somebody else, you are as a victim, as much a victim, you are as much a perpetrator as anybody else. So we will identify you. And we will stand up to defend our rights as citizens. We will not pay you to be an activist judge. We will not pay you to be an activist politician putting our youths in jail. And you go scot-free. Our National Assembly members, the next thing you notice, we're going to go ahead and occupy the National Assembly. If you are unworthy of being a representative in the National Assembly, step aside. Step aside. If you cannot defend our youths, you cannot stand up for what is right and for justice, step aside. I thank you very much, all of you, for watching. Again, I wanted to pay my solidarity with the youths and to say that over our dead bodies that these youths would be detained in mile 2 for over a month for a crime where there is no shred of evidence. And we have politicians, we have lawyers, we have activists, we have other citizens in Gambia being mute about this because their children are not part of it or because their jobs are at stake. We will not take it anymore. Thank you very much. Good night to all of you all. God bless you and God bless the Gambia.